up on some things.
Okay.
You took office in 2001 after an extremely contentious election, controversial end to that. The Supreme Court decided it. The nation was incredibly divided. How would you compare the divisions we faced then to what we're living through right now?
You know, it's hard to compare times. One thing, though, is for certain: the job's a tough job. Everybody looks at the presidency when they campaign one way, then they get in office and find out there's a reality to the job. And you know, there's been times where we've been divided. I remember growing up as a kid, and when I got out of college, we were really divided. And you know, it requires a lot of people coming together to try to make us united.
But there's enormous division right now, and although President Trump has said he hopes to unify the country, have you in the first month seen him do or say anything that, in your opinion, would be an attempt to heal the wounds of the election?
Well, first of all, there's only been 1 month in office, and so it's you know, he's got 4 years. Secondly, I think you have to take the man for his word that he wants to unify the country, and we'll see whether he's able to do so. It's hard to unify the country, though. The news media being so split up. When I was president, you know, you mattered a lot more because there was like 3 of you, and now there's all kinds of information being bombarded out, and people can say things anonymously, and it's just a different world.
Well, you bring me to an interesting point, because you were a guy who faced both praise and criticism from the media during your time in office, even at the times where you were dealing with the worst criticism, where it must have been very difficult to hear and read some of the things that were being said by the press in this country. Did you ever consider the media to be the enemy of the American people?
I consider the media to be indispensable to democracy. That we need an independent media to hold people like me to account. I mean, power can be very addictive, and it can be corrosive, and it's important for the media to call to account people who abuse their power, whether it be here or elsewhere. One of the things I spent a lot of time doing was trying to convince a person like Vladimir Putin, for example, to accept the notion of an independent press.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to you know, tell others to have an independent free press when we're not willing to have one ourselves.
You mentioned Vladimir Putin. So many questions about the contacts between Trump associates during the campaign and the Russian government. As a former president, would you like to see a special prosecutor appointed to look into this once and for all and give the American people answers?
Well, first of all, I think we all need answers. Whether or not the special prosecutor is the right way to go tonight, you're talking to the wrong guy. I have great faith in Richard Burr, for example. He's the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Really good guy and an independent thinker. And you know, if he were to recommend a special prosecutor, then I'd be, you know, then it'd have a lot more credibility with me. But I'm really, you know, I've never been a lawyer. You know, I'm not sure the right avenue to take. I am sure, though, that question needs to be answered.
It was only 8 or 9 months after you took office that the attacks of 9/11 occurred, the worst terrorist attack on American soil. And just after those attacks, you gave a speech and you said this: "I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful." That's very different talk than what we're hearing today about a Muslim ban. Do you think the president's position on this has been well thought out?
I think it's very important for all of us to recognize one of our great strengths is for people to be able to worship the way they want to, or not worship at all. I mean, the bedrock of our freedom, a bedrock of our freedom, is the right to worship freely. And you see, I understood right off the bat, Matt, that this was an ideological conflict, and people who murder the innocent are not religious people. They want to advance an ideology, and we have faced those kind of ideologues in the past.
But by banning people from 7 predominantly Muslim countries from entering this country, do we make it easier or harder to fight the war on terrorism?
Well, I think it's very hard to fight the war on terrorism if we're in retreat. And I think we learned that lesson, that, you know, if the United States decides to pull out before a a free society emerges, it's going to be hard to defeat them. The enemy is very good about exploiting weakness. It's going to be very important, if that's the goal, to defeat ISIS, which I believe it should be, that we project strength. Now, whether or not the domestic politics plays helps them or not,
Just want to make sure I understand. You for or against the ban? You're against the ban?
I am for an immigration policy that's welcoming and that upholds the law.
On a more general note, you sat at the inauguration, you listened to President Trump's inaugural address, and he talked about American carnage.
Yeah.
And the fact that so much has gone wrong in this country and so much is wrong. Is that the America you see when you travel around this country?
Well, the America I see often is the America that these vets represent, people willing to sacrifice for the greater good, to put their lives on the line, and then come back and make America a wonderful place to live. And that's why I'm here. I'm selling this book, because I want America to realize how fortunate we are to have people in our midst, and that we got to help them transition from being a vet to a civilian.
And you transition me perfectly. So and you're going to stick around. Let me tell people we also want to talk more about portraits of courage and meet some of the military veterans that the president is honoring. First, though, a few of the stories behind